What's wrong?
Go to hell.
Remember the days of watching American Graffiti and feeling instantly pulled back into those radiant summer nights of the early 60s? The neon-lit streets of Modesto? The rock and roll blasting from car radios, the smell of burning rubber from drag races? The laughter of teenagers finding their way, and that intoxicating sense of absolute freedom. That movie wasn't just a story, it was a blazing teenage dream, a nostalgic ache for a time when it felt like anything could happen in just one sleepless summer night. But behind that shimmering facade lay a production nightmare that was genuinely chaotic and dangerous. George Lucas made the film on a budget so tight he had to borrow vintage cars from locals. One car actually spun out of control and crashed into a fence, bringing the police down to seal off the scene. Harrison Ford was drunk during almost every shoot, yet still radiated that mesmerizing, reckless charm. All of this went down across 28 grueling nights of filming. Here are 20 bizarre, crazy, and sometimes dark facts about American Graffiti, the movie that changed Hollywood forever, though few know the true price paid to create it. 15. Harrison Ford, over my dead body before a haircut. In the early 1970s, the name Harrison Ford carried none of the luster of a Hollywood superstar. Back then, he was simply a family man, trying to put food on the table by working as a carpenter. The audition for the role of Bob Falfa in American Graffiti felt like a financial lifeline, a chance to open a brand new chapter in his life. Yet Ford still laid down a strict condition: his hair was absolutely off limits. To him at the time, his hair wasn't just about looks, it was his insurance policy for holding on to other potential roles down the road. Instead of fighting fire with fire director George Lucas embraced that stubbornness with a true artist's mindset. He decided Bob Falfa would sport a Stetson hat throughout the entire film. That makeshift choice inadvertently became an enduring cinematic icon. The hat didn't just cleverly hide Ford's long hair. It gave the character a soul, instantly transforming Bob Falfa into the ultimate symbol of a rebellious outlaw driver. 14. A budget. So tight they had to rent cars from the locals. Looking back at the history of American Graffiti, it is hard to believe the film was made on a shoestring budget, a mere $775,000, roughly $4.5 million today. Lacking the financial muscle to knock on the doors of professional car rental agencies, Lucas carved out his own path. He turned to the locals, the very people who lived and breathed the hot rod culture of the era. And so an open invitation was sent out. Owners of cars dating from 1955 to 1962 brought their prized possessions to the set in exchange for a token fee of just $20 to $25 a day, along with a free meal. Over 300 vintage cars ranging from glamorous Ford Thunderbirds and sleek Chevrolet Impalas to classic coupes and sedans converged on Petaluma Boulevard. The quiet Northern California town suddenly shook itself awake, transforming into a bona fide street racing paradise. In fact, many of those local drivers even volunteered to hop behind the wheel to serve as their own stunt doubles. 13. 28. Grueling sleepless nights in the vampire life. Behind the vibrant nocturnal world of American Graffiti was a literal ordeal for the cast and crew, who endured 28 consecutive nights of filming that stretched from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. the next morning. To capture the most authentic lighting possible, legendary cinematographer Haskell Wexler volunteered to fly from Los Angeles to Petaluma every single night to work for free. The pressure was so immense that at one point, thoroughly exhausted, he told George Lucas, "Just point me in the right direction and I'll shoot." This biologically inverted schedule drained everyone to the bone. Chronic insomnia and fatigue hung heavy over the set, leading actor Ron Howard to later reminisce, "It was like living in a vampire movie." 12. Wolfman Jack and his makeshift toilet recording studio. Wolfman Jack. The legendary 1960s DJ initially refused to appear on camera in American Graffiti, wanting to preserve the mystique of his invisible voice on the airwaves. Even so, George Lucas successfully persuaded him to reveal his face in a pivotal scene with Kurt, a moment that simultaneously shattered the illusion while perfectly preserving the real-life magic of a legend. The most fascinating part happened behind the scenes during the sequence where Kurt calls the radio station. With no budget for a professional studio, Wolfman Jack squeezed into the restroom of a production trailer to record his lines. The cramped space accidentally provided a flawless natural reverb that beautifully complemented his trademark raspy voice. George Lucas would later fondly call it a dirty but sexy trick, giving the audience an eerie, spine-tingling vocal performance that echoed perfectly through the movie's shimmering night. 11. A real-life car crash triggers a police investigation on set. A genuine car crash occurred on set, triggering a police investigation and forcing the crew to handle the fallout with some clever diplomacy. During the high-stakes drag race scene between John Milner and Bob Falfa, a secondary car spun completely out of control and crashed into a fence in Petaluma. The incident prompted local police to seal off the filming area to investigate throwing a massive wrench into the production schedule. To prevent their filming permits from being revoked, and to keep the cameras rolling, director George Lucas had to negotiate with the local authorities. He treated the entire police squad to burgers at the Real Mel's Drive-In, a flagship location in the movie. The officers agreed to overlook the mishap under the condition that the crew put an absolute end to any off-hour street racing. This makeshift peace treaty kept the production on track and left the crew with an unforgettable behind-the-scenes memory. 10. Ron Howard initially wanted no part in the film. Ron Howard, already famous for his role as Opie on The Andy Griffith Show, was highly hesitant when offered the part of Steve Belander in American Graffiti. He genuinely worried that playing yet another clean-cut, wholesome teenager would permanently typecast him. However, George Lucas won Howard over by pitching the film not as cheap entertainment, but as a cinematic coming-of-age poem, a true piece of art. Howard agreed to sign on, but with one condition: his character Steve had to possess real depth and nuance. During production, Howard actively took the reins in developing his character. He helped rewrite several lines of dialogue to ensure Steve didn't come across as a stereotypical naive kid, but rather as a young man searching for his identity and grappling with life-altering decisions. Howard's grounded performance earned widespread acclaim and became one of the film's emotional anchors. 9. Lucas's co-writers absolutely hated the ending. American Graffiti famously closes with a series of title cards revealing the post-1962 fates of its lead characters, delivering a sudden and profoundly sobering gut punch. John Milner is killed by a drunk driver in 1964. Terry Toad Fields goes missing in action in Vietnam in 1965. Steve Bolander settles into life as an insurance agent, and Kurt Henderson moves to Canada to become a writer. Co-writers Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz, who had been with George Lucas since the script's infancy, made no secret of their intense dislike for this choice. They argued that revealing only the fates of the male characters was fundamentally unfair and far too cynical for a movie that otherwise burned so bright. Huyck and Katz tried desperately to talk Lucas out of it, but remaining as stubborn as the characters in his stories, Lucas stood his ground. This ending ignited a fierce debate regarding its emotional impact and artistic message. Some critics, most notably Pauline Kael, felt that ignoring the female characters was dismissive and mirrored the storytelling biases of Hollywood at the time. Yet this bittersweet finale is precisely what defines American Graffiti, transforming it from a simple exercise in youth nostalgia into a haunting reminder of the unstoppable march of time and fate. What are your thoughts on the ending of American Graffiti? Did it resonate with you, or did it leave you wanting more? Feel free to share your thoughts. 8. Paul Le Mat was almost arrested for an offset test drive. Paul Le Mat, who played the definitive hot rodder John Milner, learned how to drag race from actual gearheads in Modesto to bring raw authenticity to his character. However, during a night off from filming Le Mat, borrowed the production's iconic 55 Chevy to join a real illegal street race. The stunt caught the immediate attention of the local police, and Le Mat narrowly escaped handcuffs. George Lucas had to step in, personally apologizing profusely and shelling out a $200 fine to settle the matter. Despite the headache, Lucas refused to recast Le Mat, jokingly noting that the actor was simply living the true essence of John Milner. Ultimately, Milner's character, alongside his legendary canary yellow 1932 Ford Deuce Coupe, became an immortal symbol of 1960s American car culture and teenage rebellion. The climactic drag race between Milner and Bob Falfa remains one of the most memorable sequences in cinema history. Did Paul's performance capture your heart as well? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. 7. Suzanne Somers prepped for hours for a mere 3 minutes of screen time. Suzanne Somers appeared on screen for a mere 3 minutes as the ethereal blonde in The White Thunderbird, yet her brief appearance left an indelible mark on the audience. Though she had only a single line of dialogue, "I love you." Somers poured immense effort into crafting the image of an alluring, mysterious muse. She practiced in front of a mirror for hours on end, perfecting the dreamy gaze and enigmatic smile George Lucas requested to capture the romanticized spirit of a fleeting summer night. Because of the shoestring budget, the production couldn't provide wardrobe or makeup for Somers. Undeterred, she bought her own white dress and hired a private makeup artist to prepare for the shoot. Her sheer dedication helped birth an iconic cinematic image, serving as the ultimate catalyst for Kurt Henderson's quest for love and meaning. Using American Graffiti as a launching pad, Suzanne Somers would become a household television star, just 3 years later as Chrissy Snow in the hit sitcom Three's Company. 6. The crew was kicked out of town after just one night of filming. Originally, George Lucas and his production team set their sights on San Rafael, California, believing its architecture perfectly captured the essence of 1962 Modesto. However, after a single night of shooting, the San Rafael City Council abruptly pulled the plug on the production. The reasons were chaotic, to say the least. A crew member was arrested for growing marijuana, and the nightly street closures caused severe disruptions for local businesses, triggering a wave of angry complaints. Following the eviction, the crew relocated to Petaluma, about 20 miles north of San Rafael. There, they were met with open arms by both local officials and the community. Petaluma offered an ideal canvas with its historic streets and open vistas, beautifully mirroring the feel of a 1960s small-town America. Many of the film's most celebrated sequences, including the iconic cruising scenes and drag races, were ultimately captured on the streets of Petaluma. 5. Cindy Williams and Ron Howard. Dated in real life, but a hellish schedule tore them apart. On-screen lovers Ron Howard and Cindy Williams developed a genuine real-life romance during production. Their relationship blossomed from the intense proximity on set, where they spent hours breathing life into a classic teenage love story beneath the glowing neon lights of Mel's Drive-In. However, the grueling all-night filming schedule and relentless workload quickly took a toll. Exhaustion set in and their brief romance evaporated with the rising sun. Howard later reflected on the fling with a touch of bittersweet nostalgia. "We fell in love under the neon lights of Mel's, but when dawn broke, we broke up." Though it was a fleeting affair, the electric chemistry between Howard and Williams on screen left a lasting impression. They infused their romantic scenes with a raw, heartfelt authenticity, perfectly anchoring the film's themes of youth passion and the painful transition from adolescence to adulthood. Williams's portrayal of Laurie became the definitive blueprint for the spirited, romantic young woman of the era, while Howard masterfully captured the drive and curiosity of a boy on the cusp of manhood. Following the film, Cindy Williams pivoted to a historic television career, starring in Laverne and Shirley, where she and Penny Marshall formed one of the most iconic duos in American sitcom history. Her time on the set of American Graffiti didn't just sharpen her acting chops, it opened the doors that solidified her place in the entertainment industry. 4. George Lucas wrote the script to win a bet against Francis Ford Coppola. Following the crushing box office failure of his sci-fi feature, THX 1138 1971, George Lucas received a blunt challenge from his close friend and mentor, Francis Ford Coppola. "Stop making these weird movies and make something warm and human." The challenge wasn't just friendly advice, it was a powerful catalyst that pushed Lucas out of his comfort zone and into the entirely uncharted territory of coming-of-age comedy. With backing from Coppola, who was riding high on the monumental success of The Godfather, Lucas penned the script for American Graffiti. He drew heavy inspiration from his own teenage years cruising the Strip in Modesto, California, a reckless youth that nearly ended tragically when he crashed his Fiat Spider into a tree. The movie became more than just a vivid portrait of 1960s car culture. It was Lucas's own journey of self-discovery. The character of Kurt Henderson was a direct reflection of Lucas during his days at USC, while John Milner mirrored his teenage obsession with hot rods. Even the nickname Toad was pulled straight from Lucas's own high school memories. 3. Lucas forced the cast to stay in character off camera. George Lucas didn't want American Graffiti to just feel like a movie about youth. He wanted it to live and breathe the genuine atmosphere of 1960s teenagers running wild on the streets. To achieve that raw spontaneity, he forced the cast to stay in character even when the cameras stopped rolling. Richard Dreyfuss had to maintain his nervous, nerdy demeanor in public. Harrison Ford roamed the streets of San Rafael and Modesto in his black '55 Chevy, embodying the bad boy persona of Bob Falfa, with his cowboy hat tilted low and rock and roll, blasting from the radio convincing locals that they were dealing with real-life troublemakers. When the cameras finally rolled, the boundary between actor and character had completely dissolved, yielding an unbelievable level of authenticity. The cars, too, became living, breathing characters. John Milner's legendary canary yellow 1932 Ford Deuce Coupe was rescued from a rusted scrapyard. It had no seatbelts, no air conditioning, and could barely pass a basic road inspection. But under the expert hands of hot rod builder Richard Ruth, the vehicle was resurrected into an icon, complete with a chopped top, a roaring V8 engine, and an unmistakable aggressive stance. It became the true star of the strip and a holy grail for audiences. Following the movie's release, collectors hunted down the Deuce Coupe like treasure, and replicas began popping up all across America, a far cry from the junkyard where Lucas and his crew first found it. 2. Richard Dreyfuss narrowly escaped death on set. Richard Dreyfuss, who played Kurt Henderson, nearly lost his life during what should have been a routine stunt. In the scene, Kurt attempts to leap into a moving car. However, due to a split-second miscalculation by the stunt driver, Dreyfuss lost his footing and slipped, nearly falling directly beneath the vehicle's heavy wheels. Miraculously, he escaped with nothing more than a severely bruised hip. Following the terrifying mishap, the scene was reshot using a dummy to ensure the actor's safety. Dreyfuss later reflected that it was the first time he had ever faced such a genuine brush with death on a movie set. 1. Harrison Ford almost totaled the entire shooting schedule. When Harrison Ford joined the cast of American Graffiti, he was still an unknown actor making ends meet by working as a carpenter for Hollywood elite. Lacking widespread recognition, he was constantly hunting for a foot in the door of the film industry. When George Lucas offered him the role of Bob Falfa, the arrogant, troublemaking street racer with the white hot rod Ford, accepted the challenge despite it being a relatively minor part. However, his time on set was anything but smooth sailing. Driven by a fiercely independent, rule-breaking lifestyle, Ford caused a string of headaches for the production. He was kicked out of his motel room for unruly behavior, resorted to sleeping in his car, and even resorted to carving his dialogue into his own hand to memorize his lines. His antics repeatedly threatened to derail the tight shooting schedule entirely. Yet Lucas stubbornly refused to recast him. The director knew that Ford's rugged, authentic presence was the perfect embodiment of a real street racer, bringing an irreplaceable edge to Bob Falfa. Though small, the role served as the ultimate turning point for Harrison Ford's career. American Graffiti shattered the glass ceiling for him, leading to the defining roles of his lifetime, most notably Han Solo in the Star Wars saga. Did Ford's rebellious performance in American Graffiti leave an impression on you as well? Let me know in the comments below. American Graffiti is far more than a film about youth hot rods and 60s rock and roll. It is a goldmine of wild, legendary behind-the-scenes lore. From a drunk yet magnetic Harrison Ford and Richard Dreyfuss's brush with death, to Suzanne Somers practicing for weeks for a 3-minute cameo, and Wolfman Jack utilizing a trailer toilet for that perfect, eerie vocal echo. These struggles didn't just bring the movie to life. They stand as a testament to the artistic vision and creative stubbornness of George Lucas. What about you? When you watch American Graffiti, do you feel yourself getting lost in those radiant summer nights of roaring engines, timeless music, and teenage rebellion? Which character or scene left the deepest mark on you? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to hit subscribe to discover more fascinating truths behind cinema's greatest classics.